I am Tribune Soteris Vantis of the Adeptus Custodes, and in my first 60 seconds aboard this inquisitorial transport, I discovered something that cannot exist. The vault radiates a liturgical resonance, sung in canticles predating the Emperor's own coronation, though our deepest records mark that hymn lost at the fall of Terra. Its frequency is older than the Golden Throne's light. It hums. That is impossible. We approach Carthax Prime, a dead husk world swallowed by frosted silence and barred from imperial charts for millennia. Its surface crust glitters under pale, bitter light. I sense freezing ash instead of snow, and ice that fractures without sound. The ship's hold lies beyond normal reality, concrete and cold so absolute that thermometers fail, reading only -infinity degrees Celsius. We carry frozen vaults excavated from that icy crust, sealed by Mechanicus rites and Custodes oaths. Their contents are meant never to see daylight. My duty is simple: guard the cargo. Darkness and ritual protocol sharpen my senses. The hiss of vented frost, the staff-like stiff order of vox waves echoing through the corridor. Even the machinery's hum feels hesitant, as if afraid to disturb the tomb we bear. Within that first minute I detect the violation. One vault, constructed of auramite-reinforced adamant, encrusted with liturgical litanies and calibration sigils, pulses with a resonance I cannot record. The wards hum an impossibility. I lean closer, breath frosting in the stale air. My Vox monitor shows no record of such frequencies. Yet the vault's seal is intact. I lower my hand, oath a whisper. By oath I do not open you. And yet, the Vox readers show the hatch, already unlocked from inside. The click sequence is logged. Protocol forbids my hand to touch it, but the instrument, our precious, faithful Vox, reports that the seals unlatch themselves through some unseen will. I check again. No override code, no keys. The latch stands half open, warned by static charge I cannot sense with these frozen instruments. I sense the anomaly not just as data but as atmosphere. It tugs at the spine, a low drone behind my hearing, a resonance beyond sound. My armor's servo joints register microtremors, as though the relic hums through me. My training tells me this is sacrilege, framework and sinew designed to withstand battle, not cosmic inversion. The Custodes vow, never tamper with a sealed relic, and yet the world here is already tampered. Behind me, the transport's engines cough in the dim glow of instrument luminance. Arctic ash drifts through vents, granular specks that cling to my aureate pauldrons, as though they are hungry for metal. The vault seems to feed on the cold, radiating warmth inward, even as the hold remains sealed to outer heat. I taste the paradox, frost that burns. I summon the Mechanicus attaché by Vox. I say, "Forge Master, we have a breach from inside the vault." Seal compromised without command, he answers with static, then silence. His presence would offer a bureaucratic anchor, a shield of protocols. But even his mindless machine prayer cannot eradicate the suspicion that we are already alone, with something impossible. I step closer to the vault once more. Frost crystals on the floor rise like bristling bone spines. The latch lies open by millimeters. The hinges are warm. I cannot explain. By right, they should freeze and bind. Instead, they loosen as if guided by some malignant grace. The geometric pattern on the door, interlocking aquila, a sacred geometry of the Golden Throne, now pulses, beat, 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 a rhythm exactly like a heartbeat. And there, within that heartbeat, I feel time shift. I remember Terran dawns I've never lived, Prayers I've never prayed. The edges of my perception halo with fragments. Chorus, Sanctus. The Relics hymn flutters through the mind like molten snow. I raise my vox to record. Subject, Vault 03F, hazard classification Omega Pariah. Breach, internal unlocking. Resonance, pre-imperial litany detected. Immediate lockdown failure. I hear the words echo after me, altered as if the vault itself answers. Omega Pariah, loud, lockdown, breach. The notes twist. My heart, no, the auramite plate over my chest, throbs in kind. I step back, forced to distance, though every part of me aches to see inside. The hold's air feels thinner, colder, though the vault radiates warmth. The ship's lights gutter, and data streams flush unreadable litanies across the hololith. I know the Custodes' law. Never open a vault. But the law assumes the vault is inert, sealed by mortal hand, passive. This vault is alive. It moves against our code, a relic rewriting its own seals. I feel dread like I've never felt on hollow-cated battlefields. Realism gone, comms going static, biology broken, time shattering. My voice falls into the void. I cannot say what forces are at work here. The transport shudders. Internal bulkheads groan. I stagger as a pulse of warmth crawls through my armor. A shock of heat in this frozen tomb. Warmth in ice. Unthinkable. The vault's latch clicks further open, as if encouraged. A breath of air, warmer than life, drifts outward. I don't see the source, but I feel its promise. A promise of transgression. And so I end. Hold position. I may. The vox cuts off. I watch as a single wisp of warmer air spreads along the hold, eating the cold, trailing like a living memory. I do not finish the message. I cannot. Because I know the next moment will demand everything. My oath, my faith, my reason. The landing thrusters cut through an atmosphere so thin it seemed already dead. I stepped down the assault ramp with my halberd mag locked across my back, boots striking frost that cracked but made no sound. Carthax Prime lay in every direction, like a petrified ocean. Ridges of glacial glass, rising into a black sky. Snow here was... No snow. It was powdered shards, each flake edged as a blade, each gust slicing along the seams of auramite as though testing its purity. Our Custodes detail moved with practiced precision, gold silhouettes in a field of frozen knives. The inquisitorial servitors followed, dragging data altars on treads that left no tracks. We were to establish a perimeter around the dig zone and guide the Mechanicus down to the relic caches glimpsed from orbit. Protocols repeated in my vox. Secure, recover, and above all, do not look inside. Yet from the moment my boots touched the surface, I felt as though the planet itself were looking into me. Auspex readings streamed across my visor, but each return came inverted. Ridges mapped as troughs, air pockets as stone, hollows above and solids below. The ground directly under us registered as void, the sky above as load-bearing mass. Forge Master Arvion clicked his tongue in Binhar ecstatic and sent a second drone. It returned the same impossible map. He muttered that the machine spirit refused to reconcile readings. I recorded the anomaly, my voice shaking only in its lowest harmonics. I had been trained to measure the Emperor's will through the geometry of war. On this world, that geometry fractured. The snow glittered like glass reliquaries ground to dust, and each gust carried whispers at the edge of hearing. Fragments of the hymn from the vault, slowed and reversed. My inner cant shifted between battle litanies and doubt. This place was not just cold, it remembered. Every step cracked open memories that were not ours. Our lead fire team deployed seismic rods. The rods sank only halfway before striking something warm. Warmth beneath absolute frost. That was the second impossibility logged within 1 hour of planetfall. The Vox relays hissed, then repeated our coordinates backward, as though a mirror spoke. Sergeant Custodian Thiel signaled me with 2 fingers. Old field gesture, meaning keep eyes open, rules changing. We advanced toward the glacier, marked for extraction. From orbit it had appeared as a simple ridge. At ground level it loomed like a cathedral, walls translucent, faint shapes moving inside like trapped saints. The Mechanicus Magos began a chant of machine binding, hoping to calm the ice. I caught myself muttering the same word under my breath, without ever having learned them. A scout squad of 4 Custodes moved ahead to plant teleport homers for the vaults. Their auramite gleamed dimly in the polar dusk as they passed between 2 spires of ice. One moment I watched their life signs as green runes. The next the runes blinked out. No seismic shift, no warp spike, no visual distortion, just absence, like ink blotted from parchment. The gap they entered had not existed a heartbeat earlier. My auspex drew only a blank triangle where they had stood. I ordered a halt. The air itself seemed thicker, laden with frostlight. My armor's internal heaters surged, but my skin felt colder. The Mechanicus began to recite emergency litanies. The words came out backwards, syllables collapsing into one another. My helm's vox picked up echoes of my own breath, but out of phase, as if someone a second behind me exhaled the same frost. I signaled 2 more Custodes to flank and rescan the area. Their boots left no prints. The glacier's surface shimmered, briefly reflecting the vault we had left aboard the ship, an image that could not possibly be here. My mind snapped back to training. Observe, record, endure. Yet doubt whispered, observe, recall, obey. Which word was true? I switched to battle cant to steady my thoughts. We are the Emperor's hands. The void cannot erase us. The words tasted brittle. I repeated them in a rhythm, like a metronome against panic. Around me the wind dropped to nothing. Even the servitors fell still, cables humming with sub-audible frequencies that made my teeth ache. Then my vox cracked open with a sound not unlike prayer bells striking ice. The missing squad's channel came alive. Voices spilled out, not in our code, not in any drill. High Gothic intonations rolled like a cathedral choir. Invocations older than the throne. Phrases no Custodes is taught to utter. The signal was clean, unwavering, and impossibly close, as if they stood beside me whispering into my helm. I raised a gauntleted hand for silence. The entire landing team froze, golden statues among crystal knives. The channel repeated the prayer once, twice, 3 times, each time a different cadence, as though 4 throats read from 4 versions of the same forbidden text. Sergeant Custodian Thiel looked at me, eyes bright behind his visor. "They're alive?" he asked. His voice was a whisper, and even the whisper felt too loud. I stared at the auspex. No life signs, no thermal trace, only that chant, perfect high Gothic none of us had been taught. It rose, fell, and then broke into silence as abrupt as a blade drawn across a throat. The last sound before the channel cut entirely was my own name, spoken in that flawless, ancient accent. The descent began with a prayer spoken backward. Forge Master Arvian intoned it over the tremor of the grav winch as we lowered ourselves through a fissure no map had marked. I led the line, halberd reversed like a pilgrim's staff, golden armor dulled by frost. Above, the pale light of Carthax Prime shrank to a disk. Below, darkness opened like an unsealed reliquary. Our boots struck a floor of translucent ice, etched in geometry so precise it mocked Mechanicus surveyors. Columns rose on either side, immense tapering pillars shaped as inverted aquilae, wings pointing downward as though a god had been buried upside down. Each was a frozen cathedral of veins and bubbles, and inside those bubbles drifted specks of auramite, like the dust of shattered custodian armor. The Mechanicus servitors trundled behind, their treads whispering prayers into the frost. They extended mechadendrites tipped with quills and etched binharic notes onto scrolling parchment. My visor displayed their data streams, not coordinates, but dates centuries in the future, etched into the walls in liturgies none of us had seen. One inscription bore the year 065 M42, another a timestamp of 999 M47. Each rune glowed faintly with a color between ice blue and funeral gold. "Impossible," muttered Arvion, voice half lost to static. "This cathedral writes the future of its own desecration." I walked between the pillars, boots crunching on frost that refused to melt. My inner cant faltered. The air smelt of copper and incense. The ceiling above rippled with frozen ribs like the inside of a gigantic beast. My mind tried to measure but could not. Even my battle-trained eyes saw distances change between glances. At the far end of the nave, beneath a canopy of stalactite glass, we found the vault. It stood in perfect stillness. A massive block of auramite adamant, carved with Custodes heraldry, serial number 03F, precisely matching the anomaly aboard our ship. It should not be here. It should be hundreds of meters above, sealed in our hold. Yet here it waited, embedded in the ice as though grown from it. I circled the relic. My gauntlet brushed its surface. The metal was neither cold nor warm, but some third sensation, like touching time itself. Runes glimmered under the frost in patterns that shifted when unobserved. I logged a full sensor sweep. The readings duplicated those of the ship's vault, down to the last checksum. "Double record," I said, into the vox. My voice sounded thin. Custodian relic vault present in 2 locations simultaneously, serial numbers identical. These servitors hissed binharic like insects. Arvion's augmetic eyes flickered as he compared logs. No manufacturing variants. Not a forgery. Not a clone. I opened my palm. Snow like glass dust settled there and cut micro scratches into the auramite of my glove. My mind turned to the oath. Guard, but never open. Yet here we faced a paradox. Which vault held the true relic? Or were both true? Behind us, the inverted columns moaned in the planetary wind. I glimpsed figures inside the ice, their shapes blurred, arms raised in supplication. Perhaps bubbles, perhaps statues, perhaps something else. My armor's internal temperature readout jittered between -infinity and +40, unable to resolve. We approached the front seam of the vault. Instead of rivets or lock wheels, its hinges bore what looked like beads of clear ice. Arvion leaned close, servo arm extending a scanning lens. "Not ice," he whispered. "Organic." I stared harder. Each bead was shaped like a tear, frozen mid-fall, and each refracted faint crimson at the core. My auto-senses magnified. Within each droplet lay a microscopic human face screaming. "Seals of frozen tears," Arvion breathed. "Whoever bound this did so with living grief." My pulse thudded behind my ears. I recalled training on Terra's basalt floors. The Custodes' creed of perfect recall, unshakable purpose. Yet memory wavered here. I thought of the missing squad from the glacier and wondered if their sorrow had already been harvested. I reached for my Vox to report, but found only static laced with that same future-dated bin harish. The words translated as, "You will open." I snapped the link off. We circled the vault again, searching for any sign of interface. The auramite showed faint heat signatures in the shape of wings folded inward. My gauntlet hovered but did not touch. The hymn from the ship's vault trembled through the ice, muffled but unmistakable. Thiel, ever blunt, asked, "Which one do we guard?" His voice echoed up the nave, swallowed by columns. No answer came. The Mechanicus servitors extended sensor spikes into the floor. Their displays flickered. At first they read stone, then void, then a pattern like bone. One servitor clicked in confusion, head rotating 90 degrees as if listening. I walked to the far edge of the chamber. Frost mist curled from cracks like incense smoke. I felt a pulse beneath my boots, a slow, massive throb, as though the ground itself had a heartbeat. Arvion looked up from his readings. Seismic signature rising. "What substrate?" I asked. He hesitated. "Not ice. Not rock." The servitors jabbed deeper. Their auspex drew a cross-section that made no sense. Beneath the frost lay lattices like marrow, giant porous struts, radiating outward, each filled with frozen fluid. Shapes like vertebrae curved away into darkness. My visor displayed a single word: bone. The cathedral trembled. Frost flakes drifted upward instead of falling. The vault's frozen tear seals glimmered as though melting from within. I triggered my internal recorder. Subject: subterranean structure composed of osseous material. Planet may not be planetary. Vault duplication confirmed. Request immediate exfiltration. No reply. The throb underfoot quickened, matching my pulse. I could feel it even through auramite boots. The inverted aquilay columns exhaled faint vapor from their wingtips. Each droplet hissed on the floor like acid. We drew back from the vault, halberds leveled, though there was nothing to strike. My mind whispered, "This is no temple built on ice. It is a carcass wearing frost." Arvion's voice, flat with machine fear. "Sensors confirm. This is not ice at all. It is bone beneath a frost crust." The chamber answered with a low grinding sound, like teeth under glaciers. We rose from the bone cathedral in silence, hauled upward by the winch, as if dragged out of a frozen throat. Carthax Prime's pale light struck my armor like a funeral candle. The servitor's tracks had already vanished from the glass snow, erased by wind that cut in geometric gusts. No one spoke. Our auspex showed nothing beneath, yet the tremor underfoot lingered inside our boots like a phantom pulse. Back aboard the transport, I expected safety. Instead, the hold felt thinner, stripped of sanctity. Frost crawled up the vault's surfaces in veins like frostbite, each line pulsing with dull gold. My visor displayed telemetry bursts from the astropath, but they arrived shredded, letters reversed and spliced into nonsense. Every few seconds, fragments of the Emperor's own name appeared backwards. "Roribeme ed for Eman," sung in a warbling choir. The noise tasted of copper on my tongue. Command's reply came through the same corrupted channel. Its header carried the inquisitorial seal, yet dated 3 centuries hence. The order: destroy all secondary data, maintain primary retrieval, no deviation. The Vox repeated it thrice, each iteration pitched slightly lower, until it sounded like a buried bell. I knelt before the vault we had left behind, serial 03F, identical to the one below. My own helmet cam recorded my movements. When I checked the playback, the recording ran 3 seconds ahead, echoing orders before I spoke them, like a mouth rehearsing my future. I moved my gauntlet left. The image moved first. I said, "By oath we guard," and heard the echo, "We guard," before my lips shaped it. I performed a diagnostic on my Vox unit. It showed no fault. The misalignment belonged not to the machine, but to time itself. The vault's hum throbbed through the deck plating, a low liturgical drone sinking into bone. Each pulse arrived a breath earlier than the next, as though accelerating towards some unseen beat. I turned to the Mechanicus contingent. Most were silent, augmetic mouths sealed by emergency protocols. Yet one remained at his console, a junior tech priest whose nameplate read Sinem Arc, a name absent from the original manifest. His mechadendrites trembled in unlit gestures. He spoke without raising his hood. "Tribune Vanters, they are not relics." His voice was flat, but carried a tremor like feedback. I approached slowly. "Explain." "They are not containers of memory," Ark whispered. "They are blueprints. Each vault holds a template for bodies. Adeptus Custodes, unmade, remade, or yet to be born." His augmetic eye flickered. The Emperor did not sanction these. Something else did. His words struck harder than the glacial wind. I thought of the frozen fetal custodian, glimpsed in the vault beneath the vault. My training taught me to banish speculation. Yet Ark's tone wove certainty. He continued, "Blueprints for bodies, not armor, not weapons. Custodes whose oaths have not yet been sworn. You bring them aboard. You feed the pattern." I felt my gauntlet tighten on the halberd shaft. "You risk censure. I risk nothing. I am already erased." He turned his faceplate toward me. Under the hood his features flickered, like a vox static, as though identity itself failed to render. "Check your own voice prints. You are echoing your future. Soon you will not know which orders are yours." I backed away, forcing breath through the recycler. Around us the hold temperature slid lower, though the vault radiated warmth. Frost on the bulkheads formed letters I could almost read, reversed Binharic scrolling upward like a scripture waterfall. The astropath's garbled messages swelled, overlapping until they sounded like a chant reversing upon itself. Thiel approached, visor dim. "Tribune, orders from command." I repeated the protocol. "Destroy secondary data, continue retrieval." My voice cracked. He nodded, but hesitated, gaze flicking to the vault as if expecting it to answer. I opened a private channel to Ark. "Why tell me this?" He whispered. "Because once the pattern completes, there will be no telling. The blueprints will build themselves using oath, memory, and body. You're already inside their design." The deck vibrated underfoot, subtle but rhythmic. The vaults began to sweat droplets of frost that rolled upward instead of down. My visor clock lost 3 seconds, then gained 4. In the corridor outside, a servitor screamed, short, mechanical, cut off mid-wail. I walked closer to the nearest vault. Its seams bulged slightly, hinges glistening with thaw. My fingers hovered over the warning sigils. Each pulse of the hum felt like a heartbeat pressing against my gauntlet. Ark's voice over Vox. "Do you feel it?" "Yes." "It is rehearsing." The astropath channel spiked. For one instant, a clear voice spoke. "Return them to the bone below or become them." Then only static. Thiel reached for his halberd. "Tribune, the seals." The vault shuddered. A low thump traveled through the hold, rising from floor to ceiling like blood moving through a titanic vein. Every light flickered. Frost-laced cables rattled in their conduits. My visor registered microfractures forming in the deck plate under the vault. I opened my recorder. Subject, telemetry redacted by unknown hand. Astropathic messages corrupted with reversed emperor name. Command protocol orders data purge. Observed time offset in personal recordings. Mechanicus informant claims vaults are blueprints for Custodes' bodies. Seismic or rhythmic activity increasing. Even as I spoke, the echo voice repeated my log entry 3 seconds ahead, filling in words I had not yet chosen. The vault's hum matched the echo's cadence. Ark whispered, "Blueprint complete at the heartbeat mark." I asked, "How long?" "Not measured in time. Measured in oaths, broken." The hold darkened as though something eclipsed the lumen strips from within. Frost cracked like brittle glass under our boots. Thiel raised his weapon, but his visor showed confusion, perhaps fear, an emotion rare among our kind. The vault doors bulged outward a fraction, seams glowing like molten gold under ice. The frozen tear seals dripped upward and reformed, each droplet quivering in rhythm. The hum deepened to a pulse that pressed against our chests like another heart inside our armor. Ark's mechadendrites curled into a gesture I did not. "No. When it opens," he murmured, "it will not be the relic you retrieve. It will be you retrieving yourself." My gauntlet hovered an inch from the auramite. The warmth radiating from the seam licked my fingers through the plate. I heard my own voice whispering prayers before my mind chose the words. The deck trembled. A final, heavy beat rolled through the hold, louder than engines, softer than breath. The vault doors vibrated with heart-like rhythm, each thump stronger than the last. Frost lifted off the floor in trembling motes. I switched my vox to command to request immediate quarantine. The channel opened, and my own voice, 3 seconds ahead, spoke back. Too late. Shield Captain Luthar had stood sentries on the basalt steps of the Eternity Gate, his halberd raised in ceremonial stillness through wars and coronations. On Carthax Prime, he faltered within hours. It began with a stance. During morning drill aboard the transport, he shifted from the Tertius Guard to the Primus without transition, his boot dragging across the deck. The error was small, but among Custodes such slips do not occur. I corrected the form aloud, and he nodded too quickly, as though embarrassed. Later, during catechism, he recited the Litany of 10,000, but inverted the 5th line. We are wrought for war eternal. Our oath unbreaking became, we are wrought for war eternal, our oath unmaking. The change slid from his tongue without hesitation, as if he believed it was correct. We reported the lapse. The Mechanicus recorded vox logs and compared them to preserved voice prints. No anomaly. Yet every ear among us heard the fracture. Custodes do not misquote. Our training makes recall flawless. When memory fails, identity unravels. That night cycle, I passed Luther's chamber and heard the sound of whispering through his helm. I paused, knuckles brushing the cold door. The murmur was not vox static. It was sermon. Micro-sermons. Faint. Repeating in patterns too complex to memorize. Liturgical fragments stitched from 1,000 dialects, played just at the edge of hearing. I recorded a snippet on my helm audio. Playback produced nothing but silence. The following watch, I found Luthar kneeling before the vault. His armor shed frost from the edges of each plate. The flakes were not random crystals. They had shape. My visor magnified them. Runes, etched in the curves of high Gothic letters, each flake unique. He brushed them from his gauntlet, as if wiping sweat. I asked, "What do you hear?" He did not look up. Choruses, Tribune. Voices inside the helm. They instruct me. I gestured to the Mechanicus to scan him. They passed auspex across his armor. No external transmission detected. No resonance except the vault's heartbeat. Yet the frost runes spread. His exposed throat, visible where the gorget met the helm, cracked with icy sigils that shimmered in lumen glow. The others began to avoid him in silence. Custodes do not fear, but we know when a brother has been marked. I watched his movements during drill. Hesitation before strike, pauses in breath, gaze drifting toward the vault each time the hum rose. He seemed tethered to it by invisible litany. I reported to Forge Master Arvion. The shield captain is compromised. Arvion's mechadendrites tapped in unease. Compromised or rewritten. The sermons you mention are not broadcast. They originate within his helm. How? Unknown origin. Internal Vox circuitry has no such function. The next cycle, I entered his chamber with 2 custodes at my side. Luther sat upright, visor lit from within. His lips moved, though he made no sound. I commanded, "Remove helm." At first he resisted, hands clenching the edges. Then he obeyed with a motion both reverent and reluctant. The visor hissed as it lifted. His eyes were no longer eyes. Where pupils should be, black sigils rotated slowly, intersecting lines like fractured aquilae. They glowed faintly, etched into flesh. Each turn, accompanied by a sound I felt more than heard, a syllable of forbidden chant. His gaze met mine, and for a moment I thought I saw the vault reflected, though none stood nearby. He said softly, "Do you doubt me, Tribune? I doubt the corruption that rides you." He smiled, not with warmth, but with serenity. "It is not corruption. It is command, direct, clearer than any order I have ever received." The sigils within his eyes turned again. My auspex spiked with readings of heat, though the chamber was frigid. Luthar stood, taller even than before, presence filling the space like a choir swelling. The frost runes across his armor flared and then crumbled to ash. Thiel muttered across the vox, "He is lost." But I saw no madness in him, only conviction. Luthar strode past us toward the hold, his steps measured, precise once more. Every stance was perfect now, but too perfect, as if rehearsed by some external conductor. We followed. The vault loomed ahead, its hum now undeniable, rhythm steady as a colossal heart. Luther halted before it, dropping to one knee. The deck beneath him pulsed with warmth. He raised his head slowly, eyes of sigils, blazing. "I will open it," he said. The words struck like gunfire. "No one opens it," I replied, voice harsh. "You know the oath." His smile widened, thin as a knife. "I have not forgotten. I have remembered more clearly than you. The Emperor himself commands me. He speaks within the helm, within the frost, within the vault. His voice is the hum. His breath is the warmth." Arvion hissed Bin Harik denial, mechadendrites flailing. "No telemetry confirms. No channel carries such voice. This is scrap code liturgy." Luther ignored him. He placed his palm against the seam. The vault throbbed under his touch, pulse answering pulse. The frozen tear seals quivered as though glad of recognition. The hum deepened until it filled the entire hold, rattling bulkheads, shaking lumen strips. From their housings, I drew my halberd. The others did as well. Still, he did not flinch. He looked only at me, eyes of shifting symbols burning. "Tribune Vantus," he said softly, "you are afraid because you do not hear him. But I do. I am chosen. Stand aside. The Emperor commands me to open his relic." The vault beat once more, louder than before, as though in agreement. We bound Shield Captain Luthar to the restraint dais in the Medici chamber, though no mortal steel was meant to hold a custodian. Chains forged from auramite and sanctified adamant coiled across his arms and legs, etched with wards of denial. His body strained once, then fell still, head bowed as if in prayer. The sigils in his eyes spun slowly, indifferent to our preparations. Forge Master Arvian presided with a circle of servitors. Each one carried a scalpel, probe, or auspex relic, chanting in stuttered Binharik as the rites of ritual autopsy commenced. Custodes do not dissect their own. Yet here we performed examination that balanced on blasphemy, justified only by necessity. I stood watch, halberd planted against the deck, every breath tasting of cold iron. The first incision was shallow, a cut along the arm. His flesh opened with unnatural ease, no resistance, as though welcoming the blade. From the wound poured not red blood, but liquid gold. It streamed thick and gleaming, each droplet crystallizing as it struck the air, yet it did not freeze inert. It froze into words. Golden script hovered mid-air, letters suspended like insects in amber. Fragments of liturgy assembled themselves, half lines from the Catechism of Protection, reversed phrases from the Lament of Unity, syllables no tongue had shaped in millennia. Each phrase flickered once, then shattered into dust that drifted upward toward the lumen strips. One servitor attempted to capture a sample. Its mechadendrite jar cracked before contact, etched with micro-runes that spread like infection. The servitor screamed in vox static, collapsed and twitched until silence claimed it. Arvion ordered the remains burned. No catalogue, he declared. Voice tight with static. To record this is to seed scrap code contagion. The words are alive. They will copy themselves into every archive. Better that we remain blind than infected. The other Mechanicus inclined their heads in fearful assent. Their machine prayers faltered, voices glitching like broken hymns. Luthar stirred. Chains rattled faintly. His voice was calm. Do you see? I bleed commandment. I am chosen vessel, I answered with the ritual denial. You are shield of the Emperor, not his mouth. Your oath is to God, not to speak. He smiled faintly, eyes burning with sigils. Yet who decides when the shield must also proclaim? Arvian cut deeper, slicing across the chest. Again the golden blood flowed. Again it froze into script. This time the words formed names. Hundreds, thousands, cascading upward like a casualty roll, read aloud in silence. I scanned them against my visor logs. They matched battle registers from campaigns scattered across the galaxy. Then I saw a name that froze my breath. Vantus, Tribune, fallen on Carthax Prime. The date listed was centuries past. Yet I had never fought here. My memory knew no such campaign, and still the record appeared, logged among the dead. Another line followed. Vantus, Tribune, fallen on Carthax Prime. Date slightly altered, year shifted. Again. Then a third. My name repeated, each entry a death I had not lived. The scroll of golden words stretched beyond count. I staggered back, helm fogging with sudden frost. I whispered a denial prayer, but the words caught in my throat. Images flickered at the edge of memory. Battles on this frozen world, enemies I could not name, wounds I did not remember receiving. Faces of brothers I never met fell beside me in shards of recollection. My oath of perfect recall faltered. Luthar laughed softly. You remember now. The ice remembers for you. This world has always been our grave, Arvian snapped Binharik curses, ordering the incision sealed. But the wound refused to close. Golden script continued to flow, inscriptions covering the ceiling like constellations. One rune burned hotter than the rest, searing itself into the plating overhead. Open, the Mechanicus recoiled. One tore his own vox implant free, shrieking that the letters crawled across his thoughts. Another drove a scalpel into his chest, carving binary prayers into his skin before collapsing. I forced my voice steady. Shut it down. End the rite. Avion nodded, activating shock circuits in the chains. Lightning surged, convulsing Luther's body. He arched, screamed, and the sigils in his eyes flared brighter. The golden script shattered into sparks, raining down like ash. The wound at last sealed, though his flesh bore no scar. Silence followed, thick and heavy. Only our breath and the fading hum of the vault remained. I turned away, but the casualty list haunted my vision. I could still see the roll of names, still hear the phantom cries of wars I never fought. Each syllable echoed as if carved into my marrow. Memory blurred. Was it possible I had been here before? That each mission was repetition, recorded and erased, played again. My certainty frayed, unraveling like frost-brittle cloth. I tried to steady myself by reciting the Creed of 10,000. The words faltered. Line 5 again threatened to invert, unbreaking, shifting to unmaking. I bit down on the syllables, forcing them back into order. Yet doubt remained. Avion sealed the chamber and ordered all records purged. He locked the data slates into lead reliquaries and branded them with warning sigils. None were to be opened, ever. He looked at me through augmetic eyes sparkling with fear. "Tribune," he said, "this ritual was not autopsy, but revelation. You must decide. Record nothing or accept contagion." I gave no answer. My mind remained trapped on the name rolls, the multiple deaths of Vantus across centuries. Then the alarm klaxons shrieked. Auspex screens lit the chamber with crimson glare. A Custodes company inbound, 30 transponder codes, each verified, each carrying heraldry of the 10,000. Thiel's voice cracked over Vox. Reinforcements? No summons was sent, Avion rasped. I checked the codes again. Every identifier was genuine. Each one matched living warriors who could not possibly be here. Among the signals, I read my own code, repeated thrice. Through the frozen viewport, I saw golden drops descending from the void, gunships shaped like reliquaries, armored like my own, their wings etched with runes of frost. Engines whispered hymns in reverse. Luthar raised his head, eyes blazing. "Do you see? The company arrives. The Emperor has called his true custodians to open the relic." Chains rattled. The vault throbbed in the hold beyond, beating like a heart in rhythm with the incoming transponders. Their landers touched the ice without sound. Through the viewport, I watched them descend in golden armor, halberds gleaming, every heraldry stroke identical to ours. The Auramite should have caught the pallid sun with warmth, yet theirs glistened with frost, surfaces slick as if submerged in frozen water. Each warrior bore scars we knew, lines across faces, notches carved in halberd hafts, battle marks etched in memory. But they were not us. They could not be. We mustered in formation outside the hold, breath pluming in the dead air. The duplicate Custodes advanced in silence, their boots leaving no print in the snow. When they halted, the symmetry was perfect, one of theirs opposite one of ours, reflection facing reflection. My gaze locked on the tribune who mirrored me. He moved with my exact rhythm, his halberd held at the same angle, his visor scratched in the same pattern. Protocol demanded recognition. I stepped forward and gave the challenge call. Identify and declare oath. My reflection answered at the same moment with the same words. His voice was mine, yet beneath it ran a second tone, a warp echo stretched like a choir hidden behind metal. The sound rippled across the glacier, stirring the frost into drifting motes. Sergeant Thiel growled low across Vox. "They wear us like masks," The ritual of challenge commenced. 2 warriors stepped forward, each to prove claim by stance and strike. My reflection mirrored me again, step for step. When I raised my halberd in guard, he raised his. When I invoked the Emperor's creed, he spoke it inverted, syllables reversed yet recognizable. The cadence chilled the marrow. We clashed. Halberd against halberd rang like mirrored bells. Each strike was answered before made, each block anticipated. No error, no gap. It was like fighting myself across glass. Sparks sprayed upward, frozen mid-air before vanishing into nothing. Around us, the others engaged their doubles. The glacier filled with golden figures, dueling shadows of themselves, auramite against auramite. Yet as blades cut, no wounds opened. The strikes met armor, penetrated, yet no blood spilled. Instead, something else drained. Memory. I felt it first when my double strike grazed my helm. Instead of pain, there was absence. A recollection vanished. Training drills on terror. The cadence of the 15th catechism. Blank space gaped where certainty had stood. I staggered, more from shock than impact. Across the ice, Thiel shouted as he struck his reflection, then faltered, eyes wide, unable to recall his own birth name. The duplicates grew stronger as we weakened, their movements sharpened, fueled by what they stole. My double's halberd sang through the air in patterns I had once mastered, but now only dimly remembered. Each clash stripped more, campaigns, scars, the sequence of rituals. I fought to recall, anchoring myself with battle cant, but even the cant slipped, lines eroding mid-chant. I locked blades with him, visor to visor. Through the narrow slit, I saw my own eyes staring back, yet within them burned faint frostlight, runes spiraling outward. His breath fogged the air but froze before reaching me. He whispered in my voice, doubled by choir echo, "You are incomplete." We are whole. I forced strength into my limbs and broke the lock. Around me, custodians collapsed, not from wounds but from emptiness. One fell to his knees, unable to recall why he bore his halberd. Another stood motionless, forgetting how to breathe until servitors dragged him back. Arvion shrieked Bin Harik warnings, his mechadendrites sparking. Do not let them touch the vault. Too late. While we clashed, their second rank advanced. Identical servitors, identical mechanicus, every machine mirrored in frost. They marched to the relic vault within the hold. Their hands touched its auramite flanks. The hum rose, cadence deepening into organ chords. The seals of frozen tears rattled. I bellowed command, voice cracking. Our formation staggered forward, blades raised, but the duplicates blocked, their movements anticipatory. Every strike counted before it began. I lost another memory, my first oath upon the basalt steps of the gate. It slid from me like meltwater, gone forever. I pressed attack against my reflection, roaring litany to drown his choir echo. My halberd struck his chest. The blow should have killed him, but instead my mind fractured. I forgot the face of my tutor. I forgot the sound of terror's bells. My vision swam. He smiled with my lips, stronger now. Across the ice the vault shifted. The duplicate servitors dragged it free of moorings, frost mist curling around them. Chains snapped with hollow clangs. The golden block slid as though weightless, pulled by hands both real and spectral. Stop them, Thiel cried, though his voice broke on words he no longer remembered. I stumbled forward. The reflection moved to intercept, halberd rising in perfect counter. I struck anyway, desperate, and lost the memory of my mother tongue. Silence filled its place, echoing. The duplicates chanted as they pulled the vault. Their voices merged into cathedral harmony, high Gothic reversed and stretched. The altar of the ice cathedral opened before them, columns of inverted aquila glowing faint. The vault throbbed louder, heartbeat answering a choir. I fought, clawed, roared. Every strike cost memory. Names dissolved, years unraveled, faces blurred. Still I fought, but my double only whispered, "We carry what you cannot." Together, in unison, the frost-armored reflections dragged the sealed vault into the altar's waiting hollow. The hum became thunder, rattling the bones of the world beneath. We followed the vault's trail into the ice cathedral's depths, deeper than any auspex had mapped. The descent felt less like passage and more like falling into memory. Frost mist clung to the stairs, and each step cracked with a sound like brittle glass snapping. The air thickened with silence so profound it pressed against the helm. Heat dropped with every meter, yet the runes carved into the walls glowed brighter, lines of auramite gold threading through translucent frost. The colder the world became, the more fiercely the symbols burned. Servitors collapsed in silence, gears frozen solid despite redundant heating coils. Mechanicus adepts left them behind like offerings on the steps. Our breath vented in white streams that crystallized mid-air into shards and hung suspended, refusing to fall. My armor registered -100, then -2, then ceased giving numbers, as though the machine spirit had abandoned arithmetic. At the base of the descent lay the altar. It spread across the chamber like the nave of a cathedral, hollowed from a single bone. The structure pulsed faintly, veins of frost-lit marrow webbing the ceiling, and upon the altar stood the choir. They were Custodes, or the semblance of such, statues encased in solid ice, each clad in auramite dulled by frost. Their postures were identical, helms lifted, mouths open in perpetual hymn. No breath escaped, no sound carried, yet every helm visor reflected lumen ghosts, and I felt their presence as surely as if they breathed beside us. Arvian activated echo analysis. Waves rippled through the chamber, bouncing from ice to armor. The data returned scrambled at first, then resolved. The frozen choir emitted ultrasound, not random noise, but structured hymn pitched beyond hearing. The analysis mapped harmonic lines. Each note was perfect counter to sanctioned psychic wards, cancellation wave to every imperial litany of protection. The silent hymn was not silence. It was erasure. My vox crackled, useless. Every prayer I attempted in mind faltered, syllables collapsing into absence. The choir's ultrasound devoured liturgy itself. I whispered the canticle of iron, the words unspooled, unfinished. Only emptiness answered. The vault we had followed rested. At the altar's base, its surface steamed in frost air, golden seams glowing. As we approached, the frozen tear seals dripped upward and vanished. Without touch, without command, the vault began to open. Hinges groaned not with metal, but with organ-like resonance, as if ribs splitting. Inside my skull, something shifted. Visions burst. I saw terror. Not the eternal city alive with banners, but terror buried under snow. The throne room stood half submerged in white drifts. The golden throne itself lay under icicles that dripped in reverse, climbing upward toward a ceiling of ice. Silent Custodes knelt in frozen rows before it, mouths open in frozen hymn, eyes lifeless, yet glowing faint. The vision shattered into fragments, leaving my breath ragged. I staggered forward, gauntlet gripping halberd haft for anchor. Around me my brothers faltered, each shaking their heads as though struck. One collapsed, visor fogged, whispering words he did not remember learning. I turned my gaze back to the frozen choir. Their mouths remained wide, each locked in that eternal hymn. But their eyes, once lifeless, sparked faint light. Not glow, but awareness, as if sleepers stirred beneath glaciers. Arvian's augmetic voice trembled. They are nullifying us. Every ward, every prayer, every defense unmade. This is calculated inversion. I stepped closer, compelled by dread and duty alike. My breath scraped like shards in my lungs. The vault's lid shifted wider, revealing only darkness within. Yet that darkness pulsed like a heart, lightless but alive. I whispered my own name as anchor. For a moment it held, then memory flickered, replaced by the image of my corpse lying in snow, centuries past. The casualty roll returned unbidden, golden letters freezing across the chamber's ceiling. Vantus, fallen. Vantus, fallen. Vantus, fallen. The frozen choir did not move, yet their presence pressed on us, weightless yet unbearable. One custodian dropped to his knees before them. His visor fogged, his mouth opened, and soundless hymn burst from him. The frozen statues answered with subtle vibration. No, I roared, halberd striking the altar. Sparks flared, gold against frost. For a heartbeat the glow dimmed. Then the vault throbbed harder, seam widening, exhaling warmth into the cold. The warmth carried scent, incense, copper, blood. My vision blurred again. I saw Terra's mountains leveled, oceans crystallized, the Emperor's palace entombed beneath glacial crust, the throne itself beating like a heart under snow. I gasped, forcing air, forcing denial. Yet the vision left residue in my thoughts. Thiel gripped my shoulder. His voice shook. Tribune, what are they? Are they us? I could not answer. Words scattered, like frost shards. Arvian shouted over vox static. Do not look at their eyes. But the warning came too late. One statue blinked. Frost cracked across its helm. Another followed, then another. In unison, the choir turned their gaze. Eyes of frozen auramite lit with runes, staring into me, through me, beyond me. Their hymn remained silent, yet I felt it reverberate within bone, vibrating memory, erasing prayer. My halberd slipped in trembling hands. The vault opened wider, breathing rhythm in time with their stare. And all at once, every statue's eyes turned fully toward me. The vault yawned open like a sarcophagus splitting under its own memory. Frost steamed from its edges, and golden light spilled across the altar. We raised our halberds, but the sight within stilled even the strongest hand. No relic lay inside, no weapon, no artifact of the throne. Instead there curled a figure, small, unfinished, yet radiant with impossible dread. A custodian, fetal, its form swaddled not in cloth, but in armor grown from bone. Auramite plates sprouted like ribs around its fragile limbs, fused with marrow, as if flesh and relic had never been separate. Veins of frost-threaded gold pulsed beneath its translucent skin. Its mouth opened and closed in rhythm with the vault's heartbeat, releasing a chant no mortal archive held. The sound was pre-imperial. I knew this as certainty, though I could not name the dialect. The syllables vibrated deeper than hearing, words older than the throne, older than oath. Each custodian present felt the weight. One by one they faltered. Their knees struck the frost in unison. Heads bowed. Even Thiel lowered, teeth gritted, forced to obey the compulsion. I stood alone. My armor shook with the urge to kneel, my mind drowning in reverence. The fetus chanted commandment in tones that overrode training. I forced air into my lungs and began to recite the battle litanies backward. Not the way we were taught, but reversed, syllables inverted, rhythm corrupted. The dissonance held me upright. My voice rasped through the vox. We unmake the oath. We unbind the chain. We deny the command. The compulsion slackened for me, though each word burned like frost inside my chest. My brothers remained prostrate, locked in worship. Forge Master Avian lurched forward, mechadendrites raised. His voice rasped with static. We must sever life support. Before it completes, he extended probes into the vault. They met tubing fused into the fetal armor, lines carrying not fluid, but whispering light. His blades severed one, no blood spilled. Instead, a shriek of oaths filled the chamber, voices layered, our own voices, repeating vows we had sworn. The light regrew, sealing itself. The fetus writhed, chanting louder. Avion recoiled. It feeds, he gasped, not on blood, on oath. On the breaking of vow, another custodian cried out, clutching helm. His visor flickered with runes, his oath fractured into static syllables, unraveling in his throat. At once the fetal being swelled brighter, bone armor hardening, chant strengthening. Panic clawed my chest. If every broken syllable fed it, then our resistance doomed us. I clenched halberd shaft until gauntlet groaned. My reversed cant grew louder, echoing across the chamber. Still I felt my certainty erode. Memories flickered, oaths spoken on terror, now drained hollow. The fetal custodian raised one hand, fingers webbed with frost. Its tiny palm faced outward in benediction. All kneeling custodians groaned as if absolved, but absolution felt like erasure. Their armor dulled, edges flaking with frost shaped as letters. Avion shouted for cutting power. Servitors rammed electrodes into the vault, sparks showering, the fetal being only absorbed them. The sparks froze mid-air and reassembled as golden script. Broken fragments of our liturgies warped and inverted. The machine spirits screamed in binary despair. Nothing severs it, Avion cried. It is blueprint. It is oath made flesh. I staggered closer, visions swimming. The fetus turned its helmless head toward me. Its eyelids fluttered, still shut, but its chant shifted. The syllables bent toward my cadence, echoing my reversed litanies. I faltered, nearly dropped halberd. No, I hissed, forcing words backward, stumbling, clumsy, but defiant. The fetal custodian twitched. Its chant bent again, layering forward and backward at once, a chorus of contradiction. The chamber shook. The choir of frozen statues behind us vibrated, resonance feeding the hymn. One custodian collapsed, helm splitting as runes burned across his face. His last oath spilled out in reverse syllables, his voice hollow. The fetus inhaled as though drinking it. His body froze solid before our eyes, collapsing into dust. The fetus's armor grew thicker. I howled denial, pushing battle cant deeper into inversion. My throat bled with effort. Yet some part of me knew I was not resisting, but participating. The creature listened to me as template. Avion scrambled forward, eyes wide. Tribune! Stop speaking. Each word writes into it. I bit my tongue until blood filled my mouth, cutting the chant short. Silence fell. The vault pulsed, slower, but the fetus stirred as though awakening. Thiel groaned, raising his head from forced prostration. His voice was cracked. Tribune, kill it. But even as he spoke, I knew killing was impossible. No blood, no wound, only oath and faith turned to food. The fetal custodian shivered. Its bone armor flexed like ribs breathing. The runes across its skin shifted into coherence, letters forming words I almost recognized. The silence deepened, and then, for the first time, its eyelids opened. Not eyes, sigils. Runes of frostlight spinning inward. infinite depth. They fixed upon me, locking me in place, its mouth-shaped syllables. The chant stopped. Only one word emerged clear and absolute. Vantus. My name. The chamber reeked of silence, yet Arvian's servitors dredged data slates from niches hidden beneath the altar. Their surfaces were blackened by frost, edges etched with reversed aquilé. Each slate bore Imperial cipher, yet the seals were dated centuries. Ahead impossible records, archives written before their time. Arvian slotted one into his augmetic reader. His mechadendrites twitched as glyphs cascaded across his optics. He hissed, stammering in Binharic. I demanded translation. These are chronicles, he said, voice broken. Not of what has been. Of what will be, the glyphs displayed themselves upon my visor. An Imperium fractured, banners of the throne torn, cathedrals buried under snow. The slates spoke of a war called the Last War of Faith, billions dead, galaxies burned. At its conclusion, even the Custodes faltered. Even they bent knee not to the throne, but to themselves. Each name inscribed was custodian, each marked traitor. Their betrayal described in sterile lines: refusal to guard, refusal to kneel, refusal to believe. Their punishment decreed: freezing alive, entombed in vaults, bound in silence until retrieved by their own past selves. I felt my breath catch. These were not relics, they were prisons. Each vault a coffin of living gold, each bearing not saints but apostates, awaiting repetition. Thiel staggered back from the data stream, voice hollow. This cannot be. Custodes do not betray, the slate scrolled further. Images, grainy and fractured, of custodians prostrate before altars of frost, their helms removed, their eyes carved with runes. Each one identical to the frozen choir behind us. The statues were not statues. They were prisoners mid-sentence, captured in eternal hymn. I felt memory stir again, flashes of campaigns I had not fought, oaths I had not broken, deaths I had not died. Yet the slates confirmed them. Vantus, Tribune, executed for oath breach. The entry burned across my visor. No, I whispered. Fabrication. Arvian shook his head, mechadendrites quivering. No fabrication. Records beyond falsification. The cipher is true. The fetal custodian within the vault twitched, eyes of frostlight fixed on me still. Its bone armor rattled faintly, as though in laughter. Another slate unlocked. The script translated, "They will come for themselves. They will deliver their own prisons. They will guard their own damnation until the cycle repeats." I thought of the duplicates we had fought, reflections in auramite. They had not been illusions, but iterations, echoes of ourselves drawn from time's fracture, guardians of the punishment. My halberd felt suddenly heavy, the oath bound into its haft, once anchor of identity, now tasted hollow. If this was truth, then every strike I made had been scripted by betrayal yet to occur. Thiel snarled. "We are not traitors." "We cannot be," his voice cracked, uncertain. The fetal custodian's chant rose faintly, harmonizing with the frozen choir. Its mouth-shaped words of the future tongue, fragments of prophecy bleeding into present air. Arvian muttered Binharic fragments, translating half aloud. The last war of faith ends with silence. The Emperor does not speak. The Custodes speak instead. That is their crime, silence gnawed at us. Even our armor seemed ashamed. I approached the vault, compelled though every instinct screamed retreat, the fetal being stirred. Its eyes burned with recognition. My name had left its mouth already, a wound that had not closed. Arvian's servitors wailed as one, systems overloading. One collapsed into fire, sparks scattering like censers. Another scrawled its own augmetic plating with words forfeit before shorting. I commanded Arvion, seal the slates. He hesitated. Tribune, there is more. Seal them. But one last glyph burned across my visor before the slate locked. Genetic records, custodian lineages mapped forward. Cross-references identified each prisoner within the vault to living counterparts above. I scrolled unwillingly, each name paired with a living custodian, and then I saw my own. Subject, Tribune Vantus. Status, frozen custodian. Oath breach recorded. Sentence, eternal entombment. Retrieval, by self. I recoiled, throat raw. No, error, Arvion's optics flickered, his voice cold. No error, gene print match. The prisoner you face is you. The fetal custodian blinked once, deliberate. His lips curved faintly, parody of smile. Its chant ceased. Silence swelled, thicker than the void. I staggered back, halberd raised though it shook in my grip. My knees threatened to buckle, as if compelled to kneel to myself. Thiel shouted denial, but even he faltered, his visor dimming. The frozen choir stirred, vibrations intensifying, their mouths widening further though no sound escaped. The ultrasound gnawed memory from us again. I pressed gauntlet to helm, forcing words from throat. I am no traitor. I am oath unbroken, but the data slate glowed still. My own gene print highlighted, indisputable. The fetal custodian opened its mouth again. This time, no chant emerged, only a single syllable shaped like verdict, you. The altar shook, fractures spreading through the ice. Runes across the ceiling blazed, lines of prophecy. Cycle repeats. Custodian becomes prisoner. Prisoner becomes custodian. Until faith is ash. The vision of terror under snow returned. The throne buried, the emperor silent. Custodians kneeling not in loyalty but punishment. I gasped, unable to force it away. Arvion whispered with mechanical dread. You are caught in recursion. You are the prisoner you guard. I stared into the vault, into my own unborn form, into the betrayal written across time. My hands trembled on the halberd shaft, and then the genetic lock on the slate confirmed in finality. Gene print match authenticated. Tribune Vantus. The command signal struck us like thunder through the vox. Every channel lit red. Glyphs screaming self-immolation protocols. Immediate destruction of all personnel. Burn vaults. Purge evidence. End cycle. The order bore the seal of Inquisitor Malchior Vey. But Malchior Vey had died 3 centuries ago. His death recorded, his crypt sealed, his bones sanctified on terror. Yet his name glowed upon the order, his sigil pressed in wax across the vox stream. Thiel tore his helm free, snarling. A dead man commands us. Impossible, Arvion's augmetics stuttered with fear. Not impossible. Temporal recursion. Command routed from a past not yet born. The vox repeated. Louder, sharper, until it shook the lumen strips loose. Self-destruction. Immediate. Forfeit all flesh. I turned to the ship's command altar. The machine spirit displayed readiness glyphs, primed for scuttling sequence. Then suddenly, denial. Locks sealed across the console. Weapons arrays shut down. Fusion chambers barred from ignition. The spirit refused to obey. Arvion interpreted, his voice cracking. It rejects contradiction. A ship cannot destroy itself under false authority. The spirit recognizes the order as dead. We stood paralyzed. Orders had come, yet orders had never come. The frozen choir behind us vibrated, ultrasound humming through bone and helm alike. The fetal custodian inside the vault stirred again, golden runes twitching across its skin. Its silent lips curved. I staggered under weight of realization. My voice cracked. We are not here to contain anomaly. We are the anomaly. Our mission creates what we fear. The data slates burned in my thoughts. Retrieval by self. The vault was not found by accident. We were sent, not by living command, but by echoes of our own actions. To guard was to seed. To protect was to birth. Thiel shook me, voice harsh. Say it plain. I met his eyes through cracked visor. This mission is recursion. We are enacting the cycle, again and again. Every step we take feeds it. He recoiled, halberd trembling. Then there is no choice. We burn now. We cannot, I answered. The ship refuses. The order itself is ghost. The cycle locks us. Arvian screamed Binharic denial, slamming mechadendrites against the command altar. Sparks showered, but the machine spirit roared with vox spells. Negation. Pattern unbreakable. The frozen custodian twitched, body unfurling within the vault. Its limbs extended, bone armor flexing outward. Its chest swelled with impossible breath. The auramite ribs cracked apart like chrysalis. No, I shouted, racing forward, halberd raised. The vault trembled. Seals shattered upward, droplets of frozen tears raining in reverse. The fetal shape elongated, its body shifting, bones fusing into plates of shining auramite. Each wing socket cracked open, sprouting ribs that unfolded into wings of gold and frost. My brothers screamed prayers, but prayers unraveled mid-syllable. Words turned to dust on tongues. The ultrasound of the choir swallowed faith. I struck the vault's edge. My halberd screamed across auramite. Sparks fell. The creature inside pushed upward, strength growing. Its torso lengthened, spine cracking into place. Wings stretched further, etched with runes like liturgy, inverted. Vehicle hurled himself. Forward, blade aimed at the thing's throat. The strike landed true, yet blood did not flow. Instead, memory fled him. He froze, eyes blank, halberd falling from numb hands. He collapsed, whispering fragments of oaths undone. The being drank his words like incense. Arvion shrieked into Vox. Containment null! Subject escaping. The console screamed with him, alarms howling, but the machine spirit refused weapons release. The order to destroy remained locked, bound by the seal of a dead inquisitor. I knew then the truth was simple, brutal. This was never containment. This was delivery. We had been sent to open what should remain closed, to fetch ourselves the key to our own ruin. The creature unfolded fully, its body gleaming, a custodian born wrong. Taller than us all, armored in bone gold, wings unfurled like cathedral windows. Its eyes glowed with frostlight runes, gaze fixed upon me. It spoke without mouth. The sound vibrated inside marrow. Vantus. I reeled, knees buckling, halberd falling loose. My name echoed not as title, not as recognition, but as sentence. The frozen choir bowed as one, ice cracking at their joints. The ultrasound deepened, an organ note beneath the glacier. The altar split, releasing frost steam that carried the scent of incense and ash. Arvion's servitors burned out, collapsing with screams of static. Thiel convulsed on the floor, memories draining from his eyes like smoke. I forced myself to stand. Halberd raised through hands, shook. You are prisoner. You are betrayal. You cannot be free. The being tilted its head, runes spiraling across its wings. Its answer came like verdict. I am you. The vault burst apart entirely, shards of auramite scattering like shattered halos. Light flooded the chamber, not warm but glacial, brilliance that froze sight. The custodian stepped out, wings of auramite bone unfurled, filling the cathedral chamber. The being stood free, wings of auramite bone extended, runes spiraling with light. Its gaze froze marrow. Then it exhaled. The breath rolled outward like a storm of glass. Air itself crystallized. Every syllable of prayer spoken by my brothers froze mid-flight. Words transformed into jagged ice that shattered against helms. One custodian cried the canticle of iron. His chant broke into shards, piercing his throat from within. He fell choking, his vow a weapon against him. Battle erupted. Halberds swung, strikes aimed at the creature's heart, but each blow struck and hardened the world instead. Where blades met, reality ossified. Floors rippled into stone veins, walls calcified into ridged bone. Every attack made the chamber denser, heavier, unyielding. Fighting only imprisoned us further. I roared command, though my voice fractured. Cease! Every strike strengthens it. Thiel staggered upright, frost clinging to visor. Then what remains? Forge Master Arvian stumbled beside me, mechadendrites sparking. His augmetic voice rasped with terror. Reversal, inversion, used their own hymn against them. He extended a scroll of Binharic rites, fragmented, corrupted, liturgies reversed. I recognize them as heresy, yet necessity outweighs purity. Together we began. I intoned the battle litanies backward, each syllable twisted, each cadence inverted. Arvian layered Binharic counter-hymns, tones spiraling in disharmony. The sound clawed at the chamber, tearing echoes loose. Frost cracked on the floor. The being paused, wings shivering as if unsettled. But its exhale came again. The frost breath struck us, shards embedding in armor, cutting deep into memory. I lost names, brothers' faces, campaigns etched in perfect recall. Arvian bled binary static from his augmetics, sparks spraying like censer smoke. Still we continued, the environment convulsed, gravity faltered. Our feet lifted, bodies dragged sideways as the cathedral twisted. Corridors stretched like taffy into polar vortexes, walls curving upward into impossible horizons. Frost winds roared, pulling debris into spirals. Servitors tumbled screaming into void mouths. I clung to a fractured column, halberd jammed into stone for anchor. Arvion clamped mechadendrites to the deck, shrieking inverted machine prayers. The sound flayed my mind, but held the anomaly at bay. The being strode calmly through inverted gravity, wings slicing air. Each step left frost sigils suspended in void. It looked at me, and I felt my own face staring back. "You are pattern," it said without lips. "You are oath broken before sworn. Let me ascend, and you are spared." My throat burned with blood, yet I answered, "I am oath unbroken." I reversed the words at once. Unbroken oath am I not. The contradiction held me upright. The chamber shattered further. Lumen strips elongated into rivers of light, flowing upward. The altar cracked, revealing endless abyss beneath. The frozen choir dissolved into dust motes, their silence absorbed into the hymn. I glimpsed terror again, its throne room buried under glaciers, banners stiff with ice, the emperor's silhouette smothered in frost. My breath faltered. Arvion gripped my arm with trembling mechadendrite. "Tribune," he rasped, "this is cycle. It repeats. Break it now, or eternity seals." The being unfurled wings wider, glow blinding. Each rune burned in mirrored order, forward and reversed, past and future. Its exhale deepened, no longer frost but void. My helm fogged from inside, lungs filling with shards of memory. I realized choice pressed upon me, to slay this creature, my own future self, or to allow its ascension. To kill it meant erasing whatever seed might birth the anomaly, but also destroying myself. To let it rise meant submission, the continuation of endless recursion. Thiel screamed across Vox, voice breaking. Order us. Kill it or kneel. The being's gaze pierced deeper. I saw myself within its eyes. Older, colder, wings upon my back. I saw endless returns to Carthax. Prime, each cycle delivering me to this moment. Arvion forced his vox through static. Decide. Now the inverted litanies shook the chamber to collapse. Gravity spun, dragging us toward the abyss. Frost winds howled. The altar cracked apart. Above us, the ship screamed denial. Below us, void yawned like a maw. The creature stepped into the fracture. Wings spread, breath consuming air. Prayers, time. Its voice boomed, doubled, and trebled. Choose, Vantus. Kill me, or ascend with me. I raised my halberd, hands trembling, oath unraveling in my mouth. The chamber convulsed as the being's wings spread wider, auramite and bone shimmering with frostlight. Its exhale turned the last of our prayers into icicles that shattered against the altar. We had no weapons left but desperation. Arvion's voice cut through the collapse, rasping like a broken vox. Only the core. Nothing else burns hot enough. We ignite the plasma heart beneath the ice. A miniature sun will devour anomaly and relic alike. The words were madness, yet truth. Nothing less than a star could melt a world of bone and oath. Suicide became salvation. Thiel staggered forward, visor cracked, halberd dragging. We die anyway. Better we choose the flame. I looked at the being, at myself grown wrong, radiant with betrayal. My hands shook, but my voice steadied. Then we make a pyre in the snow. Arvion nodded, mechadendrites sparking. He transmitted coordinates to the ship's machine spirit, forcing override commands through layers of denial. The spirit resisted, howling in binary grief. Still he pressed, bending its will with inverted prayers, promising sanctity in immolation. We began evacuation from the catacombs. The frozen choir followed, their hymn deepening into thunder. Each step echoed prophecy. Words bled into my visor. The Emperor breathes his last beneath the frost. The Custodes light his pyre. We reached the transport's belly. Alarm shrieked as the core readied, plasma banks swelling with impossible heat. The deck shook with restrained starfire. The servitors that remained locked themselves into conduits, chanting through broken vox. Ignition sanctified. Ignition sanctified. But the being followed us. It stepped into the hold as though gravity belonged to it alone. Its wings scraped bulkheads, leaving frost sigils that spread like infection. With each breath, the lights dimmed. Prayers froze in throats. Behind it, the frozen custodes filled the corridors, their mouths open, hymn ascending. Not silence now, but prophecy. Each verse struck a bone. When faith is ash, throne becomes frost. When oath is breath, shield becomes pyre. I braced against the command altar. Arvion, how long? 2 minutes to ignition, he rasped. Sparks showered from his augmetics as the machine spirit screamed refusal. He carved denial sigils into the console with mechadendrites, each line burning. Thiel raised halberd, defiant. 2 minutes is eternity. The being advanced, gaze locked on me. Its runes burned brighter, wings curving inward like cathedral arches. Its voice entered marrow. Stop this. Flame will erase more than Volt. It will erase you. Step beside me, Vantus. Become first of the Frost Throne. The words called around my will. Half offer, half sentence. Visions struck. A throne carved from glaciers, me seated at its side. Armies of frost-armored custodians bowing in eternal hymn. No death, no failure, only rain. I bit my tongue until blood filled mouth, anchoring to pain. I serve the throne, not frost. The being tilted its head, echoing my gesture perfectly. You serve cycle. Throne already buried beneath snow. I offer freedom from repetition, Arvion screamed, his voice layered with static. Tribune, the core resists. Aid me, or it fails. I tore my gaze away, slammed gauntlet against altar runes, forcing commands with bloodied hand. Together, we pressed. Binary screamed. The machine spirit writhed like animal in chains. At last, a glyph flared green. Ignition sequence locked. The ship groaned as plasma veins pulsed, heat bleeding into decks. Frost melted from bulkheads, dripping upward like reverse rain. The choir howled prophecy louder, their hymn cracking steel. One by one my brothers collapsed, drained by the chant. Some whispered oaths undone. Some clawed at helms as memory drained. Each fall fed the being. Its wings spread wider, its breath thickened into storms. Tribune, Thiel gasped, kneeling, visor dimming. Strike me before I feed it. I could not. My hand shook, halberd trembling. To kill a brother was oath's final shatter. I whispered backward litany instead, praying emptiness to cover him. His body froze where he knelt, preserved in defiance. The being stepped closer, ignoring melting steel. Its wings brushed fire, but did not burn. It raised one hand toward me. Do not burn yourself for ghost. You are seed. You are future. Stand with me. Frost, not flame. Throne of eternity. The countdown ticked. Arvion screamed binary prayers, each syllable tearing circuits. The machine spirit wept alarms. Plasma heat roared through the hold, red light flooding every seam. My vision blurred with heat and frost colliding. The being's offer sang in marrow, a lullaby of power. Yet the Emperor's silence pressed heavier, a void that demanded choice. I gripped halberd, blood dripping on shaft. If cycle must end, let it end in flame. The being's face mirrored mine, lips curling faint smile. Then you burn your own name. The final seconds bled away. The ship convulsed as plasma heart prepared to breach, a miniature sun clawing to be born beneath the ice. The frozen Custodes sang final verse. When Custodes burn, Emperor sleeps. When Emperor sleeps, frost ascends. The being loomed before me, hand extended. Its wings shone with auramite runes. Last chance, Vantus. Sit beside me as first of the frost throne. Choose reign, not ruin. My hand hovered over halberd grip, torn between flame and frost, between ending cycle and enthroning it forever. The countdown struck 0. The halberd pressed against my palms burned with heat and weight. Every thought screamed with the echo of the being's wings, yet the plasma heart waited, a star trapped in circuitry and augmetics. I exhaled, feeling the ice and frost of Carthax Prime shatter in memory, as though the world itself hesitated beneath my decision. Now, I rasped, voice thick with ash and command. Arvion and the remaining servitors nodded, their circuits sparking with finality. The ship's hull groaned, a low hum of anticipation. The core pulsed, veins of superheated plasma spreading across conduits like molten blood. I slammed my gauntlet onto the ignition glyphs. Energy flared, auramite and bone cracking in harmony with the heart's pulse. The first wave rolled through the hold, light bending as though reality were molten glass. Shadows twisted in impossible arcs, the frozen choir screaming in wavelengths no ear could survive. I closed my eyes, bracing against a maelstrom that no armor could resist. When I opened them, the world had changed. The vaults writhed, frosted bone melting into streams of golden liquid, swirling like quicksilver, then vaporizing into nothingness. The duplicate Custodes screamed silently, armor dissolving into shimmering snowflakes of auramite. Their echoes lingered only as memory in the catacomb walls, reverberating with lost catechisms. I could see the being, its wings stretching across space and time. Frost and auramite interlaced, runes burning like liquid stars. Its eyes locked onto mine, unblinking, patient, as if measuring my resolve across centuries. And then it was gone, consumed in the nova, or perhaps retreating into the same cycle we sought to end. The cathedral cracked, ice falling into rivulets of golden mist, each fragment of bone ice liquefied, and the walls themselves moaned in the language of forgotten Custodes, pre-imperial dialect, too old to survive the flames. I glimpsed faces I should have recognized, officers I had never met yet, whose deaths I carried in memory. Each fell into the nova, each unmade by the light. Through the maelstrom I saw the throne, empty, frost-covered. No custodian waited, no emperor sat, only silence. It was a throne bereft of all, the echo of authority frozen beneath snow and aeons. The vision struck my soul. The cycle had ended, but the cost was not mine alone. It belonged to the entirety of the Imperium, past and future, a reckoning beyond time. The light surged again, a final heartbeat from the core. Golden auramite threads wove through the bridge and catacombs alike, rewriting memory as physical substance. Servitors who had survived trembled, their augmentics singing in pain and revelation. Each recording, each slate, each augmetic imprint dissolved into pure energy. History itself was being rewritten by a star in a human-shaped cage. I stumbled forward, every step a distortion of gravity and light. The ship shook as if exhaling, corridors bending, the floor tilting, walls liquefying in auramite runoff. My own reflection fractured in the polished surfaces, showing not one face but dozens, each whispering backward litanies, each echoing the decisions I had yet to make. I shook my head, trying to anchor to now, to survival, to the oath I still bore despite its violation. The frost choir had vanished. In their place, only the residue of sound, a memory of hymns vibrating in frequencies that made bones ache. I felt my breath crystallize mid-air, only to melt as the nova rewrote physics around me. I tasted auramite on my tongue, metallic yet alive, a residue that burned and healed simultaneously. Then I was outside it all, the bridge, my armor intact, though different. Etched across chestplate, pauldrons, and helm were runes I knew forbidden to Custodes, forbidden to all Imperium lore. They glowed faintly, auramite threads of the nova still alive, pulsing like a heartbeat that belonged not to me, but to the anomaly I had destroyed. I touched them, fingertips trembling against engraved sigils that whispered truths my mind struggled to hold. Names of future Custodes, names of fallen, names that had never existed in recorded history, all looping through the frost-etched runes. The auramite hummed alive with intention, as if it remembered the novas, remembered the being, remembered the throne. Arvian staggered beside me, his augmetics scorched yet operational. "It worked," he whispered. "The anomaly, it is gone." We survived. I did not answer immediately. My reflection in the viewport showed the runes pulsing softly, a reminder that survival was not salvation. I was changed. The oath remained, but it was rewritten, annotated in auramite ash. The Custodes code, the battle cant, even my own name had been rewritten in flames and frost. I moved to the viewport, staring at Carthax Prime. The ice glaciers were molten, reshaped by the nova into streams of golden mist curling toward the void. No vaults remained, no duplicates, no choir, only the whisper of what had been and the weight of what must never be repeated. A thought struck with sudden clarity. The being had offered me a place beside it as first of the Frost Throne. I had refused, yet now its essence lingered in my armor, in my blood, in my auramite-etched bones. Perhaps refusal was only partial. Perhaps I carried its memory, its claim, within me. Arvian glanced at me again. "Tribune, what now?" I exhaled, a cloud of auramite vapor escaping through the helmet's filters. "Now we report," I said. "Now we document. Now we ensure no one returns to what we have burned." But the runes pulsed, faintly, insistently. Golden light, auramite ash, a heartbeat not entirely my own. I felt it coiled in my chest, a reminder that endings are never total, that frost and flame leave residue, and that the throne may be empty, but its echoes are eternal. The bridge alarms remained silent. No external signal yet. I wondered whether the Emperor knew, whether the Imperium ever would. My reflection fractured in the viewport, runes shimmering. I touched them once more, affirming the choice, the destruction, the survival. The auramite pulsed in agreement, or perhaps in warning. Beyond the viewport, Carthax Prime drifted, molten auramite streams curling upward into the black. No ice cathedral remained, no choir, no anomaly. Yet I could feel the Nova's heartbeat in my own pulse. My body, untouched by frost or fire, was now a vessel of auramite ash. And somewhere, in the void between what was and what might be, I sensed the being, or its memory, watching. Patient, eternal, waiting for a cycle yet to come. The bridge was silent, but the auramite runes across my armor thrummed like a heartbeat in the void. I moved slowly, deliberately, each step a negotiation with the Nova's afterglow still lingering in the corridors. Carthax Prime sprawled beneath the viewport, molten auramite curling over its fractured glaciers, a monument to destruction and survival. Yet it was not enough. Not for what remained, not for what had been seen, not for what would inevitably repeat. I keyed the ship's navigational array, fingers brushing against the controls, as though feeling the bone of the universe beneath the glass and alloy. The coordinates for the ice cathedral, the vaults, the frozen choir, all of it had to be expunged. Every chart, every astronavigation slate, every recording linked to the planet was to be redacted. Erasure, deletion, denial. Carthax Prime must never exist. A whisper of frost brushed the edges of the bridge, curling along the railings like fingers of the past reaching into the present. I adjusted my helm, auramite visor reflecting the light of melted auramite streams below, shimmering like golden veins. The reflection staring back at me was familiar, yet unfamiliar. Eyes etched with runes, lips moving prayers I had never spoken aloud, voice a resonance of someone I might yet become. "Prepare the final log," I instructed. And Arvian's augmetic fingers danced across the keyboard, translating my voice into the forbidden frequencies required. The high Gothic reversed itself in the display, letters curling backward, symbols rearranging themselves, as if trying to escape comprehension. I spoke while watching the display, the words forming and slipping out in present tense, even as frost began crawling across the Vox amplifiers, tiny filaments of ice overtaking circuitry with deliberate intent. I did not flinch. This was containment, containment by erasure, containment by memory, containment by myself, now no longer just me, now partially echo, partially custodian, partially Nova-born auramite vessel. The voice on the transmission echoed the past and whispered the future. The high Gothic twisted and sang, looping prayers in a voice not entirely human, syllables carrying the weight of the last war of faith and the centuries yet to come. The data slates recorded my every motion, yet simultaneously rewrote themselves. Logs duplicated, corrupted, redacted. It was a self-imposed quarantine of information, a loop that would prevent any entity, man or machine, from tracing what had occurred. I could feel the frost inside the ship, subtle, silent, crawling along augmetic veins, moving with purpose. It was a warning, a reminder, a residue of the anomaly I had destroyed, or perhaps inherited. I glanced at the auramite visor. My reflection had shifted. It was no longer wholly mine. My eyes, were mirrored with someone else's, or perhaps some version of me, yet to exist. Lips that had never spoken a word of this century were moving, whispering silent prayers. Intonations I did not know I remembered. I tilted my head, noting the runes along my chest plate glimmering faintly, as if acknowledging the presence of this reflection. A shiver ran through me as I realized that containment was not complete. The threat had been neutralized, yes. The Frost Cathedral had been unmade. Duplicate Custodes dissolved, vaults liquefied. Yet the seed remained. Within me, within these runes, within the auramite ash that now constituted a part of my being, the anomaly's echo persisted. It would not awaken while I observed, while I remembered. But it was preserved, a potential for recurrence. I keyed the final command sequence. A cascade of deletion signals began transmitting, routing through subspace, encrypted with protocols older than any star chart. Every copy of Carthax Prime's existence, from primary astrometric logs to fringe rogue data scattered across the sector, was addressed. The ship's machine spirit hummed, acquiescent yet uneasy, aware of the magnitude of what we were attempting. I did not falter. The universe had to forget, or we would be forced to endure again. Frost crept further. It advanced up the deck plates, along the hull seams, threading itself through conduits, tendrils reaching toward the transmission arrays. The auramite ash within my veins vibrated in response, a resonance of survival and warning. I continued speaking, repeating the reversed prayers, translating them simultaneously into protocols for erasure. Words, actions, and energy intertwined. Log, frost, auramite, and self. Coordinates redacted, I intoned, and the ship's comms confirmed. The last traces of Carthax Prime blinked into non-existence in the navigational matrix. Nothing remained. Charts would reflect a void where the planet had been, void where the anomaly had existed. It was gone, yet its shadow lingered in auramite ash and frozen memory in me. I exhaled. Breath crystallized mid-air, frost forming intricate patterns, fractal reminders of the cathedral, the choir, the vault, the fetal custodian. I reached up and touched my visor, auramite runes beneath fingertips, pulsing faintly. The reflection inside was whispering now, not in words I could comprehend fully, but in prayers that transcended time, warnings, oaths, fragments of knowledge. I shivered but held firm. This was my burden now, custodian, narrator, witness, seed. I recorded the final note in my personal slate, a fragment for anyone who might find it and understand nothing. Threat contained or seeded, observation maintained, coordinates redacted, no record, no trace, trust, no reflection. I left the rest blank. The truth was encoded not in words but in runes, frost, auramite ash, and the echo in my reflection. Arvion looked at me, fear and comprehension in his mechanical eyes. I nodded once. No more needed to be said. Our purpose was complete. The ship would continue carrying us forward, memory intact, anomaly contained within me, or perhaps waiting silently for another cycle. I turned to the viewport, staring out at the void. Stars swirled, Auramite reflections dancing across black. Nothing moved where Carthax Prime had been. Nothing would. Yet the frost on the Vox panels continued to spread, faint, deliberate. A reminder, a signal, a heartbeat of the anomaly that had been, and of the one we now carried forward. I adjusted my helm and spoke quietly to the reflection. A prayer, a warning, a promise. Do not awaken. The reflection mirrored the motion, lips whispering the same warning, or perhaps issuing it anew. In that mirrored visage, I understood. We are custodians now not only of the Emperor's will, but of time, of frost, of Auramite ash. The ship sailed forward into the void, coordinates redacted, the anomaly contained, or seeded. And in my Auramite visor, eyes not entirely my own watched, waited, whispered, end.